Hi, everyone. Welcome to YouTube Live with the REI Concierge. I'm Tim and this is Lisa. How are you, Lisa?
Hey,
Not the
hey, I'm
audience.
doing great.
Good. We're good at YouTube Live. This is our second try and we look just as good as last time. I think we nailed it. Hmm. I don't know how to
I'm
tell if anyone's watching
still
live or if this is just going to be later.
I'm still managing the technology behind the scenes and learning. I am a
No, we got
learning
it.
creature. I
We
am
got it.
learning. And last time I made a mistake and I learned and I fixed that mistake this time. That's all that matters, right?
That's
Progress,
all that
not
matters.
perfection.
Amen. Amen. Better than last time. That's all we can do.
Better than last time. I was reminded today, who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody about podcasting and reminded myself of the conversation you and I had before we started the REI Concierge podcast, where I said, you know what, Tim? One of these days, we want to be able to look back at our very first episodes and say,
Yep.
wow, we've come a really long way and we just need to
Yeah.
get started. So,
Yeah.
YouTube's going to be the same thing.
It
One of these
is.
days, we're going to look back and be like, haha, look at us when we were just starting out. We've come a
Look at
really
those
long way.
disasters. Yeah. We have
But you know what? We've started,
we've
right?
started. And
And
the
that's what
podcast, we have over 50 episodes now. We sound fantastic.
I
That's
love
all that matters.
podcasting.
I do too. You have like six podcasts.
Uh and
Two.
counting.
You have two. Okay. Anyways, so what are we going to talk about today?
Let's talk about the craziness of this market and how to remain sane. I like to think about it in uh, a metaphor. So I live in Sri Lanka. I've kind of learned how to surf. I definitely have not like given it my all, but I have a little bit of a feel for surfing. Before
Right.
moving here, I had never surfed at all. So surfing the waves, right? Because sometimes the waves are just crashing
Yeah,
and it
bro.
feels super crazy right now.
Yeah.
So rather than getting tumbled and thrashed by the waves, how can we surf when the waves are kind of crazy right now?
How do we surf? Yeah, it is crazy. The interest rates and the inventory and the supply chain and all this stuff is just a little bit nuts. So you guys, you and Gene talked about this on the podcast last week, how to surf the waves of change. And you came up with numbers and everything. Like we don't
It
do
was
enough lists.
fun.
All real estate people love lists, top tens, top five, top sixes. Like we kind of stay away from that. But like you
But we
guys
did it.
inadvertently did it, and it's
Yeah.
good. And I'm looking at it now. Number one is keep your eyes open. What do you mean by that, Lisa?
You know what? The thing that I think is really important is to keep looking, even if there's nothing that fits my need, that fits my numbers, keep looking because it's important that I keep a pulse on the market, that I pay attention to what's going on. And you never know when that surprise property is going to pop up. And this has happened to me before where I see something and I'm like, okay, what's wrong with that property? Clearly, it's definitely wrong with this property. Somebody else would have bought it. And yet there's nothing wrong with it and it works.
Yeah,
And so, even the craziest of markets, I think about you and your primary residence and finding that in the midst of last year's craziness.
that was
And you
crazy.
got the only deal that existed in all of the Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
metro area, right?
When we had literally stopped looking, like for
Yeah,
those reasons, and then like, well, we'll keep an eye on it and stuff like that, and then it pops up, and we're like, oh, well, that works. That's exactly what we want, and here we are.
that's why I say keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open. Number one. Number two, be patient. So you got to keep your eyes open, and you got to be patient.
Oh, this is a hard one.
It's
How do how
impossible.
do you how do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, with one being no patience at all and 10 being like the patience of Job? Isn't that a saying?
Zero.
Where
I mean, you don't even need to finish the sentence. I'm a zero. I'm incredibly impatient. Like, especially like, so you get to the point as an investor when you have enough money to buy a property, you want that property and you want it now. At least I do. I'll speak for myself. You know what I mean? Like, you save, you save, you save, or you 1031, or you cash out refi, or you liquidate some stuff, whatever. You have the money. Now it's being eaten away by inflation in your savings account, and you need to put it into a property right now. I'm in that exact position, and it's driving me nuts.
like are you
So
talking are you asking for a friend, Tim?
yeah, just theoretically speaking, it's hard. It's hard to be patient, and then like so there's a double-edged sword of being patient and also not being too patient. You know what I mean? Like you have to be patient, but you also have to know when it's a deal, you need to act.
Yeah.
You can't always wait for the next deal. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So there's that fine line, and it's a balance, and it's a learned skill, I guess, where you're like, that makes sense. And we just had a conversation with a client where it's like, you're not buying your primary residence, you're not buying your forever home. Like, do the numbers work? Everything we talked about, do the numbers work? Will this be a good investment? Yes, buy it. Buy it. Might there be a better one next week? Sure. Might there not be another one for 6 months? Sure. So it's like, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to digest. When you're looking for that perfect house and everyone's on Zillow and you want the right backyard and like the exact right school district and stuff like that. This is not that. This is buying a business. And I think so. You have to be patient to wait for that right one and not get one in a crummy neighborhood, but you also have to be willing to act when the time's right. So how do you find that balance? I don't know. I haven't done it. I'm not the best role model there, but yeah.
Have patience.
Have patience. Moral of that story, have patience. I don't know how you could have patience from me saying all that, but hopefully it comes through. Number 3, zoom out and then zoom in somewhere else. You like that segue?
So this I want to give credit to Jean, our newest concierge. She talked about this where, we talked about the US is a huge country. There's such diversity in markets across the country. And if you're really focused in, which most of us do have a market or 2, or maybe even 3 that we own in, and that's where we're looking. And if we're not finding anything, okay, zoom out, take a look at the whole country. Where else could I look? Right? So look at the big picture and then try zooming in somewhere else, different market. I mean, we did this years ago when Chattanooga was getting out of our number zone, which is kind of laughable now when I look at the numbers, but still at that point, the numbers we were looking for didn't work. So we zoomed out. Oh, let's zoom in on Kansas City. That's another option. And then we did that. And it is, I also just really want to say to not forget about the smaller markets, the tertiary markets, the small cities that nobody really knows where they are, the York, Pennsylvania's. Not lots of people know where York is. I don't want to put down York, Pennsylvania.
Used to be the capital of the nation, Lisa. I don't know if you knew that.
I definitely did not know that. Did you just make that up?
Read your Civil War history. York, Pennsylvania was once this nation's capital.
Are you serious?
Serious.
Oh my goodness. How did I never know that?
I don't know. It's a deep cut. It's a deep pull from this nation's history. It was brief, but it was true.
From the state of Pennsylvania.
That makes it more difficult to swallow. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to fact check you later.
Okay.
Zoom out, zoom in.
Please do, because if I'm wrong, I'm going to feel real dumb. But I'm pretty sure I'm
right. Yeah. So zoom out, zoom in somewhere else, keep looking other places. It's a big country and there's lots of variety, lots of diversity of markets.
Yes. And I think that's super smart because I think we get kind of blinders on sometimes where we're just like, we read an article and we're like, Huntsville, Alabama, I got to be in Huntsville, or Houston, Texas, whatever, pick whatever market you want. And you do get those kind of blinders and you're like, you look and you look and you look, but the numbers aren't there for you for what you're looking for in terms of returns or what you're looking for in terms of entry price. It's just not there. And like, you're not going to force that square peg through the round hole. Like, you need to just kind of say, okay, I get it. This isn't for me right now. I can revisit it next year, whatever. Let's zoom back out. Let's look at Cincinnati, or wherever have you, and just kind of go through the returns you're looking for, kind of how much money do you have? How much do you want to spend? That really determines what market you can go to. Who do I know there? What competitive advantage do I have? Do I have college friends that still live there? Do I have a cousin that can look around for me? Have I worked with a realtor that now lives there? Or can I use Tim and Lisa to put me in touch with someone? Like, there's all kinds of different ways that you can get that kind of boots on the ground feel. And then you can zoom back in and say, oh, this one works better. And now I have options. So I think that's super smart.
Love it.
Good job, Jean.
Yes.
She's not here. We have to give her props. Number 4, stay in community, Lisa. What do you mean by that? I mean, it's pretty obvious what you mean by that.
I think it's so important to have people to talk to who get it and who can commiserate. I mean, that sounds terrible, right? Like, but in challenging times, I don't want to be, what do they say? Misery loves company. And also, again, not everybody gets real estate investing. Some people don't want anything to do with it. And other people, do and they get it. And I just think it's so important to stay connected with people who get it and will be excited for you too when you get that property. Or we'll sit down and look at the numbers. I remember 2 months ago when I was looking at the quad and okay, I need somebody else's eyes on this, Tim. Like you look at this, tell me, am I running these numbers appropriately? We've got to stretch a little bit in this area. Does it make sense? I think it does, but I just need somebody else who really gets it and knows my portfolio and stuff like that. So incredibly helpful.
Yeah, no, totally. And I totally get that. And I think it's super important, especially as you kind of grow your portfolio and getting to know, we always talk about knowing your why. And like, I know your why because we talk about it every day. And like, if that quad would have come to me from a client of ours where that's their first property, I probably would have said walk away, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because the cash flow is not there. It's very borderline if this is going to be profitable the first year or two. But I know what you and John are looking to get, and I know the rest of your portfolio, and it makes all the sense in the world for you to do this. So I think having those people that you can talk to about specific things is super important. Like while you were in Nepal, I went under contract on a quad and immediately pulled out of that contract in Birmingham because it was a garbage heap. Like I didn't need to run by you and say, hey, Lisa, I'm under contract at 290 on this and it needs $75,000 worth of work to make $700 a month per unit. I don't need to run that by you. I can just pick up a basic calculator and say, that's not a good deal. But was it worth it for me to spend $500 on an inspection to get in there and see it? 100%. I'd much rather do that than not see it, and miss out on an opportunity. But I'd also much rather walk away than rebuild this thing from scratch, more or less. So yeah. But I think being in community and having those people that you can ask these questions to and like run things by is huge, especially at different phases of your career. So that's super important too. The last one's review your goals. How are you going to know what you're heading for unless you know what you want, right?
Yeah. And we just added this one today because I found value actually this last weekend. John and I sat down and really reviewed our goals and looked at our overall portfolio. And, it's an interesting time, a month past the start of the war in Ukraine and how, stocks and things have changed and shifted. And so, what's going on with our portfolio? We've taken on more debt. And it was just really helpful to go back, look at everything, get the big picture and be like, okay, for the next 12 months, this is really our focus, and remind ourselves and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're working for. Here's why. And it just gives you, it's like that compass that's like, okay, this is the direction we're going. Here's why. Nobody else has to agree with us. We know why we're doing it for ourselves. It makes sense. It's success for us, and go forward.
Yeah, totally. No, and I think our goals change all the time. Like I think a lot of real estate investors, and I was the same. You set your goals like I want X amount of dollars per month in cash flow, or sillily, I want 10 properties. Like number of doors really doesn't matter. It's their profitability. But like you have all these different things and they change. Like you get different careers, or you make more money than you thought, or you make less money than you thought, or you move geographically, or all these things change your goals and what real estate can and should do for you. And I think to reassess that and step back and be like, are we comfortable with our, debt to value, or whatever you call it, level of, what do you call it as a personal investor? Your equity. You know what I'm talking about? How leveraged am I? All those things. Am I too leveraged? Should I pay down some debt? You know what I mean? Or do I have too many properties? Did I get, out ahead of my skis and have too many? And this one isn't really giving me the returns I want. Should I look at pulling money out or just selling that one? Like just kind of, I guess, culling the flock. If you have properties that have just always been a headache, and maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe this thing just takes up too much of my mind share and I just want to get rid of it, or turn that into properties that won't take as much effort. I think reevaluating those, and you don't have to do it all the time because you'll drive yourself crazy. But like you said, like during changing times and stuff like that, it's good to reassess and be like, am I at where I want to be? Or like, should I make a couple, they don't have to be major tweaks either, just little things you can just tweak a little bit and just make sure you're still heading the direction you want to be and why you want to be there.
Yep. 100%.
Did any of that make sense?
All of it made sense, Tim. Everything you say always makes sense, Tim.
Not true, but thank you, Lisa. Blatantly false, but I appreciate it.
I have a
Oh,
quick
YouTube.
success
All
story
right. Yes,
to
please.
share before we finalize this. So one of my tenants is moving out unexpectedly. The lease is up at the end of August, but it's a young couple. They've been in there a year and a half, and they're ready to move into something bigger. This is a small 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It was great. They'd just gotten married. They were really excited when they first moved in. They've been great tenants. So they reached out and they're like, "Hey, we need to move right away." Right. So, okay, no problem. Here's the stipulations, blah, blah, blah. Then they were like, and by the way, our friend is interested in the apartment. And so I was like,
Nice.
feel free to connect your friend. And this is the one that one of the properties that I manage with my sister. And so put in touch with the friend and I said, okay, here's the application to fill out. Filled out the application. Everything looks good. Had a conversation with him. And this is one of the most, if it all works out, which it looks like it will, one of the most seamless turnovers potentially that we have, where the lease ends on April 9 and we're potentially starting the new lease on April 12 with the new
What?
tenant. And I'm just like, this happens. This happens.
That's
And
awesome.
I am incredibly grateful.
Yeah. No, that is huge. I had something like that happen on my Fifth Street condo when we were in the Netherlands. Our condo in DC, where it was my previous tenants were kind enough to do the showings. It's one I managed myself. They were kind enough to do the showings for me. And they would go in and they would feed, get back to me. They would answer questions about the neighborhood and stuff like that. And if they had property specific questions, they'd call me. And it was probably a 3 or 4 day difference there where I sent in a cleaning crew. They cleaned, they filled a couple holes, with spackling, and someone was in 4 days later. And I didn't see that. And I was living in The Hague, so like if you have good tenants, they take care and like provide you with other good tenants. So it was awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's great.
Yeah. So there are horror stories and there are fantastic stories in real estate. So it's good for us to tell our happy stories.
Yeah, happy
Horror
stories. We'll
stories
tell the
and
horror
happy
stories later.
stories.
That's
Let's
right.
do that for our next YouTube live. Horror stories
Horror
and happy
stories.
stories.
I think that's a crowd pleaser. I think we should do that because we have both for sure.
We do indeed. All right. Well, it's been fun.
It's been real. Let's do it again sometime.
Let's
Maybe
do it.
sooner than a month.
Okay.
We got to
Sounds
keep it.
good.
We got to give the people what they want, right?
What do the people want to?
I don't know. I don't know, but I think people tell me it's YouTube, so we're doing YouTube.
Tell us what you want, people.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us what you want. There you go.
There you
I want
go.
Tim to. I want Tim to zip it. If you want that, just keep it to yourself. Anything else, tell us, and we'll try to do it. I wish Tim would shut up. Uh,